Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. And today we are going to do a full spoiler review of She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. I'm actually just going to give my thoughts about it and talk about it, but I'm not going to worry about spoiling it, so if you don't want it spoiled for you and you want to read it, don't watch this video. This book choice was the last book that we read for Peter's Book Club, which is listed below, and it's over on Goodreads, but I also do videos on here. We are currently reading Endless Night by Richard Lehman. You can go check out the reading schedule. It's all on the Goodreads app and all that kind of stuff, or website. You can go check that out. It's listed below. Join us. It's fun. You can read one book or all the books. You can do whatever you want to do. So here's the deal. This book was published in 1992 by Wally Lamb. I read it, I think it would have been like 96 I read it, when I was about 2 years sober. And I read it while I was on vacation in Cancun, Mexico, with my dad and my stepmom and my ex. And I read it over 3 days, sitting by the pool. And I remember I was just like, I could not get enough of this book. And it profoundly impacted me at the time that I read it. I don't even really know, after having read it again and in retrospect, what so profoundly changed me about this book. You know, like, I don't know why it affected me so greatly, if that makes sense. But I will say this, reading it a second time, 20 years later, it profoundly affected me again, but for very different reasons. So, if you don't know anything about this book, let me read the back of it to you. Meet Dolores Price. She's 13, wise-mouthed but wounded, having bid her childhood goodbye. Beached like a whale in front of her bedroom TV, she spends the next few years nourishing herself with the Mallomars potato chips and Pepsi her anxious mother supplies. When she finally rolls into young womanhood at 257 pounds, Dolores is no stronger and life is no kinder. But this time she's determined to rise to the occasion and give herself one more chance before really going belly up. In this extraordinary coming-of-age odyssey, Wally Lamb invites us to hitch a wild ride on a journey of love, pain, and renewal with the most heartbreakingly comical heroine to come along in years. At once a fragile girl and a hard-edged cynic, so tough to love yet so imitatively lovable, Dolores is as poignantly real as our own imperfections. She's Come Undone includes a promise: you will never forget Dolores Price. And I honestly, I read a lot of covers on books, and it promises a lot, but this one, I don't believe that I will ever forget Dolores Price. And it's interesting because I'm not somebody that loves to reread books, but I would probably reread this book maybe in another 10 or 20 years to just kind of see my stance on it at that point. I am close in age right now. I'm 45, I'll be 46 in a few weeks, to Dolores at the end of this book. I think she's in her late 30s when the book ends. It starts when she is 4 years old. The book begins with her mother and father being married. Her father works painting houses and doing things on houses, and there's a rich woman in the neighborhood who he is supposedly having an affair with. Her mother gets pregnant and then has a miscarriage, which then shoots mom into this serious depression, which then affects the marriage. Dad ends up leaving, and Dolores really at that point never has a relationship with her father again in the entire book. Things get so bad for her mother and they deal with mental illness. He deals with because see, the book is so real to me. I see the characters as real. Wally Lamb deals with mental illness in such a poignant way in this book, such a real way, I think, and not only in somebody going through it, because later Dolores goes through it as well, but also in how family members are affected by it. If you've read his next book, which is This Much I Know Is True, it's about two brothers and one of them is schizophrenic. So, Wally Lamb has written a lot about mental illness, and this was 20 years ago when a lot of people weren't fictionalizing and talking about, in a healthy manner, the importance of addressing mental health issues in books and things like that. She then moves in with her grandmother, who she doesn't have a great relationship with, and she continues to gain more weight and gain more weight, and she's very much an emotional eater. A lot of things happen. She's bullied at school. She's made fun of by these girls. There are some hysterical moments on this book, okay? When she moves into her grandmother's house, there's a lot of funny things that happen around that time with her moving in, her walking down the street, and there's these twin sisters that are really hard on her, and I did a video about that and talked about it, but it was like one of my favorite parts of the book. Her mom gets out of this. She's in a mental hospital, and she gets out after, I think, about a year or year and a half. And she comes back, and they live with the grandmother, and she sells the house that they grew up in. Now, when she was younger, her dad put a pool in the backyard right before he leaves. And much of the book is done around this symbology of what, like a whale and being in the water. Later, when she has a therapist, he does this whole thing where he has the pool symbolize her mother's womb, and she's born from the pool, and then she calls him mommy, and she chronologically goes through her ages until she gets to where she is, almost to where she is, therapeutically. And it's very interesting I mean, I've never heard of anything therapeutically done like this before, so it's very interesting how that was dealt with in the book. I will tell you that I do a live stream at the end of all the books that I read for the book club. Several people in there said that they did not like that whole aspect, that therapeutic aspect, and that it was weird to them. Other people said they really, really liked it. It was creative enough to me that I liked it. I mean, there were moments where, like, I think it was like on her 9th chronological birthday, she was able to, like, her therapist took her to go pick out a toy, like, for her birthday, and she picked an Etch-a-Sketch, which later then she becomes an Etch-a-Sketch artist. I mean, there were just so many, like, perfect details to this that made it so strange but beautiful that it was just so well done. So what happens is she goes, lives with her mom and whatever. Well, her mom really wants her to go to college, and she has no desire to go to college. She's terrified to go to college. Her mom is a toll booth operator, and one night, right after they've gotten into a fight about her going to college, her mom is hit and killed in the toll booth. So as a result, Dolores goes to college, and when she's there, okay, oh, and the other thing is that earlier, and this is such an important part of the book, I can't believe I just remembered it, this couple moves in upstairs from her and her mom and her grandma, and the man rapes Dolores. I think she's like 13 or 14 when it happens, and it is a huge part of her life for the rest of the book. And the fact that Wally Lamb addresses it in the way that he does is done so, I think, poignantly, but also to show that wounds really never heal that happen on an emotional level. And it just was done, I thought, very, very realistically, and with respect to Dolores. You later find out that Mom had been having an affair with the man that raped Dolores, which just even deepens the whole book. So she goes to college, she gets there a week early, she ends up meeting basically the janitor of the dorm she's supposed to stay in, this woman this was kind of fun. I mean, the whole thing was very, very sad. The whole book is tragic, okay? It just is tragic. But at the end of it, she meets this woman, and Dottie, and the woman's a lesbian, and she very quickly falls in love with her, and she calls them both, clean fats, because they're both fat, and she's like, we're just a bunch of clean fatties, and nobody cares about us, nobody loves us. It's just tragic, okay? So anyway, Dolores is made fun of by these girls, her roommate, who she's been lying to through these letters, but Dolores keeps this girl's letters and from her and her ex-boyfriend at home, and she kind of falls in love with this ex-boyfriend, Dante. So it just, anyway, I could sit here and talk about this book all day long and what happened. She ends up chasing the guy down, marrying him, but not before she goes up and sees this beached whale. She ends up having an affair with Dottie, a one-night, relationship where Dottie, makes her drink too much. But she's just taken advantage of all her life. Her entire life is her being taken advantage of over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I think to some degree, it's relatable. The human experience of when I'm sure a lot of us out there feel like, I'm a doormat. I let people walk over me. And the most poignant moment to me in the whole book, I've used that word poignant 15 times, haven't I? What a phony. I mean, the part that I love the most, okay, when I was really rooting for Dolores was at the end of the book. Well, kind of near the end of it. She is with this guy, Dante. She's chased him down. She's kept how she knows him a secret, that she kept all of his letters to his ex-girlfriend, Kippy, and picked nude pictures of him that he had sent to his ex-girlfriend, and she basically concocted them meeting, and she set the whole thing up, and it's very kind of stalkerish and calculated. But you love her so much you can't hate her for it, but it does seem weird. And so they're together, and then he's cheating on her with somebody else, and the whole thing gets very, very weird. And so they break up, and then her grandmother dies, and on the way home from the funeral, they're eating at Burger King, and she's held it all in all this time about going to a mental hospital and her mother dying and being raped and her chasing down Dante, and she just lets it spill out, and he's like, you are crazy. And he goes nuts and just drives off in the car. He gets really angry. And at that moment, I was like, freedom for Dolores. She finally has owned her truth. She's told her story. She has freed herself. Yes, yes, yes. I loved it. It was like my favorite moment in the entire book. And at that moment, she is allowed to move on. And she moves back into her grandma's house. And I mean, there's other wonderful scenes. She meets this hippie couple at one point when she's living with her grandma and all this kind of stuff. But she moves home. There's this tattoo artist through the whole book that she's friends with from across the street. And she's one of my favorite characters in the entire book. And then she also has this teacher in high school who is gay, and just the way she addresses him and his boyfriend. And then later, you find out that he has AIDS, and it's just, again, done so respectfully and so beautifully in the book. It's not only, I think, the story of, and I don't want to ruin the end of it for you, for anybody that, I won't do that spoiler to you, but Dolores does find love. And as somebody that has been hurt her entire life by people, she has to allow herself to be loved. And this book is really about stopping resisting. And at some point, you know, using your journey that you've gone through to allow yourself to pass a toll. To me, it was symbolic that her mother was a toll booth operator. There was so much symbology in this book. It was fantastic. Wally Lamb is one of my favorite authors of life. And, you know, the fact that they use this whale through the whole thing, and at the end of it, there's whales at the very end of the book. And it was interesting because at the end, so she meets somebody else, and she, you know, they get married, and he takes her on this trip, and he's taking her to go see a whale, which is a common theme through the whole book. And at the end of the book, the last line, you know, well, I want to read something from the very, very end, but she says in here, hold on a second, about, she ends up marrying this guy named Thayer. Where's the part that I wanted to read to you guys? It's so fantastic. I'm sorry. She says, Thayer turns on the radio news. A poll says the woman Americans most respect are Oprah Winfrey, Nancy Reagan, Mother Teresa, and Cher. The royal couple may be separating. In a Florida town, neighbors have firebombed the home of a family down with AIDS. I know it now, accept it. I'll never give birth. I pull out my journal from under the bucket seat. I started it at the hospital 6 days earlier as I lay in the hospital bed thinking about my life and waiting for the fertilized eggs to cleave. I uncap the Bic, meaning to rail about negatives, unfairness, infertility. But something different comes out, something I hadn't planned. I write, love is like breathing. You take it in and you let it out. And then at the end of the book, she's on this ship, and they're going out there to whale watch, and it's horrible weather, and nobody has seen any whales, right? No whales are coming to the surface. And she says, just beyond the boat, the gray ocean turns green, effervesces, a 20-foot circle of bubbles. Let me just tell you, I listened to this on Audible, and the last probably hour, I literally, ugly cried, bawled my eyes out through the whole thing. Just beyond the boat, the gray ocean turns green, effervesces, a 20-foot circle of bubbles. I'm the closest one to it. The crew doesn't see. Then the water darkens back to normal, and though it's quiet, something is happening. Something private only I can feel. And this part is so symbolic of her life. I look quickly through the rain-dribbled window for Thayer, but I don't have time to get him. I'm trembling. I can't afford to look away. She breaches. Nose first, her grooved body heads straight for the sky. Her muscular tail clears the water. Her fins are black wings. The fallback is slower, grace, instead of power. She cracks the ocean and in a white explosion of foam, re-enters. I've seen her, swimming and flying both. I'm soaked in her spray, christened. I laugh and cry and lick my salty lips. People run from the cabin now, pushing past me, hooting and aiming their cameras and beer bottles at the affirmage. Thayer's head is above the crowd. He's shouting for me, and I'm shouting too, shoving back against the others towards him. Thayer! I saw her, I yell. I saw. The book is such a great book. It is a life lived. I feel like Dolores is somebody that I have known, but I also feel like in many ways she's telling my own story. I related so much to it. There's so much death, grief, and loss in the book that as somebody that is older reading it, it had a much different effect on me than it had when I was younger. It really resonated with me on a level that I can't explain, of loneliness and feeling alone at times with having almost everybody that you knew grow up being gone. But you start new families, you invent new families, and that's what she does, and it's beautiful and it's fantastic. And the book is just charming. It's magical. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. If you have never read it, you've got to read She's Come Undone. It's fantastic. And the audio version is actually really, really good too. I started off not liking it, but in the end, it was just, I mean, bawling my eyes out when I was like listening to it. So I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.